Something is going on with Richard Dawkins. In a few of his recent interviews, he's starting to say things like, I'm a cultural Christian. In another interview, he actually admitted there are some good arguments for the existence of God. For the first time in his entire life that I know of, he admits there could be a God. I'll go ahead and show you these clips and then we'll talk about it. This is the clip where Richard Dawkins comes close to saying there could be a God. This is the closest I've ever seen him come to saying there could be a God.
But you said that, it's happened just because of the laws of physics. I want to take this back to that step. Where did those come from?
Well, let's get to that then, because you keep getting to that, and that I believe that's a very profound. I mean, if somebody was going to convince me of the need for a God, it would be there. It would be not in my own field of biology. And I found, I mean, I've read The Language of God, and indeed I reread it today. I read it first when it came out. I love your song, by the way. That's really nice. In the audio version, I listened to the audio version today. I don't know whether you've had, Justin, but
I haven't, I'm afraid. I'll have to include it in the program at the end or something, so people can hear it.
I found the initial C.S. Lewis part about the moral argument really profoundly unconvincing. When you get onto the physics, when you get onto
we should get to that then.
Yeah. Okay. When you come on later to the origin of the physical constants, now that's getting warm. That's getting close to a good argument. Unlike the morality one.
Well, is that mainly because it is essentially a scientific argument?
No.
That's
it's
obviously
much more
area
difficult
you're
than that.
happiest with.
It's that the physical constants, things like the speed of light, gravitational constant, and strong and weak force and things. Most physicists agree, that if you change any of those constants by even a very, very small amount, then we don't come into existence. The universe doesn't come into existence. They have to be like that in order for galaxies to form, for stars to form, for chemistry to form, actually, and then for the prerequisite for life to evolve needs that as well. So that's the nearest approach to a good argument. By the way, I want to be very careful about this because I once said that, I'm not going to mention the name of the man I was having a debate with. He seized onto that later, and then I think a couple of days later, he went up to Scotland and said, "Dawkins is a convert. He's or not quite that." I think
you gave an inch and he took a mile.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that is the closest I've heard Richard Dawkins say there could be a God. It's related to the fine-tuning argument. If you're not aware of what the fine-tuning argument is, I'm going to show you a video by a scientist named Hugh Ross. He explains what the fine-tuning argument is.
Could you explain for our viewers today who perhaps haven't heard of fine-tuning before, what fine-tuning is and how that kind of shows the existence of God?
Well, fine-tuning is basically saying there's very narrow ranges on which certain features of the universe and the laws of physics must possess to make life possible and human beings possible in particular. And that's something I've noticed in our research here at Reasons to Believe, is that when you look at this fine-tuning and try to measure the degree to which you have to have things in specific values, the evidence goes up exponentially when you go from what's necessary to get a simple bacterium, to what is necessary to get plants, to what is necessary to get animals. But the greatest jump is what's necessary for billions of human beings to be redeemed from their sin and evil. And so this actually gives you an argument that the Creator must be a personal being, because we can actually put numerical measurements on the degree of fine-tuning, right, and it measures to be many, many orders of magnitude what many of us human beings can achieve. And so what you'll see in our books is calculations of how many more times the creator of the universe must be more intelligent than we human beings are, more knowledgeable than we human beings, better financed than us human beings, but greater technology in our human beings, and basically making a point. This must be the work of a personal being, because only a personal being can manifest the attributes of intelligence, knowledge, creativity, and power, and care, but to a degree far beyond anything we human beings are capable of.
But I don't know, just kind of walk the audience through some of these things that you're saying the evidence is compounding. And I think it'd be neat to go into some of those specific evidences so that people can kind of get an idea of what you're talking about, even though, I mean, feel free to dumb it down for me, but at the same time, I just want to give you that platform to do that as well.
Sure. Well, I'll try to give you a couple of highlights. I mean, one that's fairly recent is the recognition that of the 92 elements we see in the periodic table, all but 2 of them are extremely anomalous in terms of what we see in the crust of the Earth relative to what we see in rocky material elsewhere in the universe. The 2 that are normative are manganese and iron. Everything else is anomalous, and in some cases, extremely anomalous. So, for example, the crust of the Earth has 630 times as much thorium, 340 times as much uranium as what we see in rocky material in the rest of the universe. And it's thanks to that superabundance of uranium and thorium, our planet has had a long-lasting hot core. And that hot liquid iron core being circulated has enabled our planet to have a strong magnetosphere enveloping us that allows us to be protected from deadly solar and cosmic radiation. It also prevented the atmosphere and the oceans of the Earth from being sputtered away by the particle radiation from the sun. And so, excuse me, we now have an understanding of why planet Earth has such highly anomalous elements, and also pertains to our industrial capacity. So we got 60 times less sulfur. That's what enables us to grow food. You're not going to grow any food or crops on Mars because there's way too much sulfur there, but you can on the Earth. So we're deficient by a factor of 60 times in sulfur, but we're abundant by a factor of 60 times in aluminum, 90 times in titanium, which enables us to construct aircraft that can fly all over the world. These are light metals that have very high strength. And so we have a very anomalous high abundance of these valuable elements. And there are 22 elements we see in the periodic table that are what we call vital poisons. If they exist in the crust of the Earth at too high of an abundance level, it'll kill us. But too low of an abundance level, it will also kill us. So we have to have just the right amount of molybdenum in the crust of the Earth, just the right amount of iron, just the right amount of arsenic. There's actually proteins in your body that need arsenic, but you only need a very, very tiny amount. And you get above that tiny amount, the arsenic will kill you. It has to be at just the right level. And so all 22 of these vital poisons are extremely anomalous in their abundance level here on planet Earth. And we don't see it anywhere else in the universe. So it really does look like somebody engineered it to get it just right. And astronomers, again, have discovered how this happened, how the early solar system formed in a gigantic cluster of about 20,000 stars that existed much closer to the center of the galaxy than the solar system exists today. And in that dense cluster of stars, the early emerging solar system got exposed to 3 different kinds of supernova eruption events. It got exposed to neutron stars merging together to make black holes, where these supernova and neutron star merging events happen at exactly the right time and the right distance from the Earth, so that the Earth was not destroyed, but on the other hand, got sufficiently enriched in all these elements and sufficiently depleted in elements that would be a problem. And then when all that enrichment and depletion was accomplished, we got kicked out of the birth cluster and driven to a distance twice as far away from the center of the galaxy. What kicked us out? It was a gravitational slingshot where our solar system was interfacing with 4 or 5 very massive stars that slung us out of the birth cluster. And then when we got to the ideal place for advanced life, we again engaged another 4 or 5, 6 massive stars that halted our movement. And so we were born in the most dangerous part of our galaxy, and we ended up in the safest part of our galaxy, but only after we got enriched. Now, it's also true that our planet Earth is anomalous compared to all the other planets and asteroids we see in our solar system. And that's because our Earth formed in a way incredibly different from the other planets. The other planets formed by gravitational accretion. And our solar system began with 10 planets, not 8, 5 gas giants and 5 rocky planets. 2 of those rocky planets, the Proto-Earth and Theia, collided with one another when the Earth had oceans thousands of kilometers deep. That very deep ocean cushioned the collision so that the Earth was not destroyed. In fact, what happened, most of the mass of Theia got absorbed into the Earth, so the Earth became bigger, more massive, and denser. There was a debris cloud around the new forming Earth that condensed to make the moon. And so we have this relatively small planet orbited by a gigantic moon that stabilizes the tilt of our rotation axis. It ensured that at the just right time for human beings, we have our rotation rate slowed down to 24 hours. And that 5th gas giant planet, it got kicked out by a gravitational interaction with Jupiter and Saturn. And that gravitational interaction basically slimmed down Mars from being a planet about twice the mass of Earth down to a planet that was only 1/9 the mass of the Earth. This was called the small Mars problem. It took 20 years for astronomers to determine how did Mars get to be so small. But we now recognize if it wasn't for that transformation of Mars, there'd be no possibility for advanced life to exist on planet Earth. Now, I could give you 400 more examples just like that, but that's just one that basically shows us, hey, we live in an extraordinarily fine-tuned universe, galaxy cluster, planetary system. We're orbiting a star that's unlike any other star. One of the things I put in my book, Design to the Core, I show you the luminosity stability of our star, the sun. Then right underneath it, I show you the luminosity stability of the second most stable star we found in our Milky Way galaxy. Our star, the sun, is 5 times more stable than the second best star. And if it wasn't for that extraordinary stability, we wouldn't be able to have this podcast today.
Wow. Wow. There's so many ways, so many directions I want to go with that, but that is truly remarkable. I feel like anytime that science seems to really look into something, that is the trajectory, isn't it? Towards more and more depth and complexity. It's really remarkable. I mean, I know this is not your area of expertise, but even thinking about what the cell was known to be in Darwin's day compared to what it is now. And it just seems like everything that we peer into with more and more sophisticated instruments, it just seems like there's just this limitless complexity to everything. And it truly is remarkable.
So basically, to summarize, the reason why this fine-tuning argument is so convincing, even to somebody like Richard Dawkins, if you just study the universe and ask yourself, what would be required for life to exist here on Earth? It's incredibly complex. Something Hugh Ross has also said is that every single month, it becomes 1,000 times more complex because scientists are finding every single month more fine-tuning required for life to exist here on Earth. Hugh Ross just mentioned the sun. There's also a lot of things about our moon that's required for life to exist here on Earth. The size of our galaxy matters. The size of our solar system matters. Every planet in our solar system matters. The specific type of resources we have on this Earth matters. In the exact right measurement, that matters. There's literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of things that if even one of them were wrong, all life could not exist. So you have honest scientists like Richard Dawkins starting to look at the evidence and starting to say, it would be very difficult for life to exist without a creator, without a designer, because of these fine-tuning arguments. Everything has to be perfectly in place for life to exist here. If even one of them were not perfectly in place, life could not exist. In addition to Richard Dawkins admitting that God could exist because of all these fine-tuning arguments, all the evidence that's coming out related to fine-tuning, I saw another video where he admitted there could be a creator of cells, human cells.
You have written that God is a psychotic delinquent invented by mad, deluded people.
No, I didn't say quite that. I said something rather better than that.
Oh, well, please tell us what you said. Please tell us what you said.
Well, I would have to read it from the book.
No, please.
The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. Jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully.
So that's what you think of God?
Yeah.
How about if people believed in a God of infinite lovingness and kindness and forgiveness and generosity, sort of like the modern day God? Why spoil it for them? Why not just let them have their fun and enjoy it?
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I write a book, people can read it if they want to. I believe that it is a liberating thing to free yourself from primitive superstition.
So religion is a primitive superstition?
Oh, I think it is, yes.
So you believe it's liberating to tell people that there is no God?
I think a lot of people, when they give up God, feel a great sense of release and freedom.
Why do you think that? I mean, what's your dad? What's your scientist? What's your dad?
I think, I've had a lot of letters saying that, and I've...
There are 8 billion people in the world, Dr. Dawkins. How many letters have you had?
No, I haven't done that. That's quite true. Well, it's hard to put a figure on it, but I mean, I put it as something like, 99% against or something.
Well, how do you know it's 99%
I
against,
don't.
say, and not 97%?
No, I did. You asked me to put a figure on it, and I'm not comfortable putting a figure on it. I just think it's very unlikely.
What? But you couldn't put a number on it?
No, of course not. No.
So it could be 49%.
Well, it would be. I mean, I think it's unlikely, but it's quite far from 50%.
How do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I put an argument in the book.
Well, then who did create the heavens and the earth?
Why do you use the word who? You see, you immediately beg the question by using the word who.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
And what was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right, and how did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer. And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe. Well, but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God.
I encourage you to watch that entire documentary. It's called No Intelligence Allowed. As you just saw, Richard Dawkins admitted that we could have had a creator of some kind, an intelligent designer. He's perfectly comfortable saying aliens could have created us. That interview was probably from 15, 20 years ago. The reason why more and more, even atheist scientists, are starting to say there could have been an intelligent designer when it comes to biology, to life, is because we're getting so much evidence proving that the cell could not have just poofed into existence all by itself. In every cell, there's basically an entire book inside of the cell. Inside of DNA are genes. We've discovered that there's a language inside of our genes. There's 4 letters in this language. These letters come together to form words. These words come together to form sentences. These sentences are instructions specifically for that particular cell. So for example, the human cell has a book inside of it with letters that form words, that form sentences, that tell that particular cell, that human cell, how to replicate and come together into a human being, to form a human being. Some interesting things about this book is it can't store things like numbers. It doesn't have like the number 5. So it can't tell the cell to create a hand with the number 5 fingers on the end of the hand. What it does is it just tells you what to create next, what to create next, what to create next. And the end result is you have a hand with 5 fingers. 4 fingers and 1 thumb. And the interesting thing about these cells is it's all different based on the kind of creature it is. So a human cell can only ever know how to create a human because the instruction manual inside of that cell tells the cell how to reproduce and grow into a human. A frog cell can only ever create a frog. A cat cell can only ever create a cat. Anytime we've ever visibly seen this gene be messed up, be mutated, it's always been devastating. It's killed or deformed the baby. That's why sometimes you can get deformed babies, deformed animals. We've never ever observed a cell mutation be a good thing. We've never seen a cell mutation change a monkey into a human or something like that. So from these 2 clips you're seeing from Richard Dawkins, he's looking at the fine-tuning evidence. He's looking at what would be required for the universe just to exist in a way that life could exist. He's come to the point to where he said, you know, that might be a good argument for God because it's really hard to see how the universe could have perfectly come into existence in order for life to exist. From the second video, you're seeing him look at the evidence regarding just life, biology. He understands how difficult it would be to get from no life to life, even just a single cell, to get from nothing to a single cell. Based on all we know today, it is impossible for that to happen without a designer. You heard Richard Dawkins say it. We don't know. I have no idea how you can get from no cells to the first cell. It seems impossible. There's nothing we've ever observed that could cause that to happen. We've never observed information, books being written by themselves without an intelligent designer. If you see a book, you know that there was an author. Well, inside of every single cell, there's a gigantic book that's more complicated than any book you've ever read. That information had to come from an intelligent designer. And even Richard Dawkins is starting to admit things like that. We'll go ahead and end the video here. I do want to make another video about Richard Dawkins. He recently said he's a cultural Christian. Basically, he's starting to change his tone from that second video that you just saw where he's so militantly against the God of the Bible to where now he's kind of like, I don't want to live in a world without the Bible. I kind of think that would be bad. So if you're interested in seeing that video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when that video comes out. Let us know in the comments below if you think that the fine-tuning argument is a good argument for the existence of God. Let us just know your thoughts about the video in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video if you'd like to see more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.